Yeah, so thanks to the guys at Ducati Manchester for loaning me this Ducati demonstrator. It is the Supersport S, and so far I've ridden it about 5 miles from the dealership in Manchester, and I'm heading out towards Knutsford and Cheshire and some other roads around here to do a bit of a test ride and have a little look around the bike. But it is very, very smooth. That's the first thing I think about with this bike. Now, I haven't really yet had the opportunity to get it up and running on any kind of country roads, but it is, two things that immediately come to mind is it's very smooth and it's very, very stable. It feels very well built, very, very solid as a bike. It just has some really nice punch to it. I was actually surprised how much torque this bike has, because coming from a number of other bikes that might be sort of similar in style to this, where you get kind of a lot of inline type performance, this has got the real torquey grunt of this engine, and I'm just wondering which is the best way to go. So let's have a little nosy on here. Maybe this wasn't the right way to go. We will find out soon. So some of the key characteristics that come to mind with this bike, and I haven't yet taken it around any corners particularly, but the suspension handles the bumpy roads really nicely. It's got all-in suspension, front and rear, with full adjustability on there, the usual compression, rebound and preload that I can see. Mike talked you through some of the details of the bike up front, what it does. It's got the 3 different settings that you can set with the computer, which are the sport, the touring and the urban modes. The minute I've just got it in touring mode, I might try the sport a little bit later. It looks like a really nice bike. I particularly prefer it in the red. There's something about Ducati red that really stands out for me, and I just really like it. This countryside around here is amazing, actually. They're obviously spraying something on the fields there, so hopefully that's not going to kill me if I breathe it in. Let's just talk a little bit before we get into riding this at any speed. Let's just talk a little bit about the handling so far. So yeah, suspension feels fantastic. The brakes on this are absolutely brilliant. I mean, they're, you know, the front and the rear brake both seem to work exceptionally well. The riding position, I suppose, is somewhere between a sport bike, super sport bike, and your kind of typical naked, you know, like the S1000R, slightly more upright to this. This is just slightly more in that kind of sporty feel, but it's still not, you're not that low down on it that it feels like, you know, you're going to be in any pain at all. It's not, it doesn't give you any hassle on your arms or your legs. Everything feels just about right. There is something about the sort of general feel to the bike as well, because it just has this, as I said at the beginning, this kind of smoothness to it. When you're riding along, it all sounds odd to say this, but it feels like a luxury ride. You know, the throttle control is really nice and precise, but it's not in any way savage. You can, even at low speeds, you can just let the throttle off, put the throttle back on, and the way they've got the fueling set up on the bike, it really does just nice and smoothly apply those changes in power, rather than, you know, getting any kind of jerkiness that you might expect. Now then, is this a dead end? We'll follow this biker and see where we're going. I'm not sure I'm choosing the best roads down here, because I'm not really from this area. I just wanted to get the bike out on a few country roads and see what it was like in the corners and so on. But you can just, even now, just that gentle lean gives you that sense that if you were at speed, and shortly hopefully we'll find some roads like this where we can try out some cornering on it, but if you were at speed, it does feel like it would handle well. And yes, this road is a complete dead end. Now on this particular model of the bike, it also has the quick shifter, which is particularly nice. I mean, it is incredibly smooth. It just applies that gear without any drama whatsoever. It is actually the smoothest quick shifter I've ever used. You just... oh, and it is so nice at cornering too, this bike. It really has something about... I don't know whether it's the suspension or the way that the bike is just built and set up and designed. It just going around that corner there, you know, I wasn't doing any sort of huge speed or anything, but you could just tell how stable, how hugely stable the whole bike feels. It's one of those things really, I suppose, you can't ever describe in a video like this. You've got to be on the bike, planted on it and feeling it for yourself to see just how stable it is. How much of the road do you need, sir? It's very quick actually. From the point of view of jumping on a bike, I typically like to have a bike for at least half a day before I can start to get a feel for just what it's capable of, some of the nuances of how it rides. One thing I just really love about this bike is the pickup. You know, you're going along here, we're in third, we're doing sort of 45, and if I squeezed in just a little bit of throttle, it's got a real sense of pickup. So for overtaking, presumably, it is a really good bike for that. Now I'm just being a little bit careful around here because I don't know any of the roads at all, and in places, as you can see, there are quite a few tight spots. This bike doesn't seem to care about those. It just has very gentle counter steer is needed to get this bike around. It's almost like you don't feel any kind of stress or pressure. My arms are completely relaxed and I'm able to sort of hold my body up entirely just without actually putting any pressure on the bars, which makes it hugely different. And then you just pop in that little bit of power and it really does lift off like some kind of spaceship. You know, this is really hard to explain what I mean by this, but if you think about the way I talked, and if you'd seen my previous video about the Hypermotard SP, that has got some astonishing torque. This seems to have more thrust, more power, and the same kind of torque, if not more, all built in. And the aerodynamics of the bike means that I am hardly getting any wind blast at all. Yeah, there's some wind going over the helmet, but just where my head is, and I'm 5'10", I'm not really getting any. It's just such a relaxed experience. I'd kind of forgotten, I suppose, what it was like to have a bike with a screen on. This bike definitely is absolutely no slouch whatsoever. It's just got grunt, it's got responsiveness, it really has got a nice, agile and precise feel to it. Just something about the continuous and continued stability of the way the suspension works, the way the bike just sits and feels, the way you feel positioned and planted on the bike. It really is just an extension to who you are. You just gently pull back and forth. I don't know if this is a characteristic of Ducatis in general. I get that feeling as well when you're on the Ducati Hypermotard SP. There's just something about this connectivity, this ergonomic feel to the way the bike handles. Wouldn't this be such a nice lifestyle though? Just if you could be out there test riding bikes and not have a care in the world on beautiful sunny days like this one has turned out to be. Wouldn't that be an amazing life to have? And that's what I'm doing today with this Ducati Supersport S. Just a reminder, it is I suppose a bike that kind of fits between the sort of Supersport bikes and the more torquey kind of bikes. For me, I suppose I could compare it, if I'm comparing it between the two bikes I've got at the minute. I've got the BMW S1000R and I've got the Hypermotard SP, and this sits squarely between them. I think this has a feel of a little bit, it's probably the suspension, it could be the design of the bike, I don't know, but it has much more of a feel of being solid. It feels actually more solid and stable, I think, and certainly more grunty than the BMW S1000R. I've not been able yet to find any roads that I can really sort of take it on and try out what it's like at speed, but at your typical speeds, I suppose, it just handles brilliantly well. So in summary, what do I think of this bike? I think it is a really, really fantastic machine. You know, I could say that, I suppose, about any bike, but there's something about the sort of feel to this. It's got almost a luxury feel, it's got precision, it feels planted, the suspension's great, the brakes are great, the engine and the performance are just truly phenomenal, really. It's the kind of engine, I suppose, on this bike that gives you that sense of grunt, that sense of power, that sense of torque. It's very similar in many ways to the Hypermotard SP in terms of the torque, but this seems to just deliver it that little bit more cleanly, and a little bit more of it too. It just seems to give you that quick sense of immediate thrust, you know, that kind of force in the back kind of thing. I think this bike is definitely worth you getting out there, calling the guys in Manchester if you're in the area, or one of the Ducati dealers, and giving it a test ride for yourself, because I think you'll like it. I know I do.